All right, class, let's get started. Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis. All right, so we are chapter 5. And we're going to see how plants get energy to be able to survive from the sun, using water. Hopefully, if you have plants, you water them and you keep them in enough sunlight so that they can get the energy that they need to be able to live. If you take your plants and put them all in a dark room, they will die. If you don't give them water, eventually they will die. Why is that? Because they need both of those to be able to survive, right? Photosynthesis is the process converting light, which is a kinetic energy. Remember, we talked about kinetic and potential energy. Converting light, kinetic energy into stored energy, right? We want to convert it into an energy which the plant can use. And plants have the ability to take energy from the sun and convert it, not create. Remember, energy is not created or destroyed. Convert it to energy that they can use, okay? So there's different types of plants, and they can convert it in a little bit different ways. And we looked at plant cells under the microscope today in our lab. Cyanobacteria carry out photosynthesis mainly in the water. Eukaryotes, such as algae and plants, carry out photosynthesis in the water and on land. Plants can be, you have algae, we have plants, seaweed, we have plants in the water, plants on the land. And then archaea do not carry out photosynthesis at all. Life depends on photosynthesis. We need plants. We need, obviously, fruits and vegetables, things that we eat. We need them. Our body needs them. So we need photosynthesis to happen. We cannot photosynthesize, but we can eat things that have photosynthesized, and they have used the sunlight to convert that to an energy. And then you go and eat your vegetables, eat your kale, eat your green beans, eat your salads. Those are all use photosynthesis, and we eat them, and then our bodies can take the energy that is in those plants and convert it into energy that our cells can use. And so we all need photosynthesis to happen. Even outside of just the fact that we can eat them, they also, as you'll see, plants produce oxygen for the air around us. They produce oxygen. They use carbon dioxide and they produce oxygen, so we also need that as well. All right, so sunlight powers photosynthesis. Sunlight, the sun is shining, it powers photosynthesis. Photosynthetic organisms just need a few simple ingredients. Sunlight, carbon dioxide, which every person in here is breathing out, so carbon dioxide, and water. This is why we keep our plants in light, and we put water every so often in our plants. These are necessary for photosynthesis. So necessary for the plants to be able to convert light into energy that they can use. Notice over here, this equation, right? Carbon dioxide, which everybody breathes, most animals breathe out. Water, you water your plant, and there's water all around the earth, of course. Light from the sun, that's what's needed. The result is glucose. This happens inside the plant cell. It makes glucose, which is what is glucose? What did we learn about glucose? What do we say it is today? It's a sugar, but what is the more monosaccharide? And oxygen. They release oxygen, right? So glucose and oxygen is made. This glucose can then be used to power reactions inside the plant cell, make ATP, and therefore allow the plant to be able to live. Here we have a leaf cell. See the chloroplast here and the vacuole in the middle. Right? Photosynthesis produces oxygen and sugar. We just talked about that. All right. The sun emits energy. The sun that we all have seen our entire lives, emits energy, right? In different waves. Shorter wavelengths, longer wavelengths, right? See X-rays here, gamma rays, radio waves are going to be your longer wavelengths, your lower energy wavelengths. Sunlight is right in the middle here, right? So different wavelengths have different levels of energy. Obviously, you can't see radio waves or microwaves. You also can't see X-rays or gamma rays. We only can see this in this small range here. But there's other light coming, ultraviolet light. Ultraviolet radiation is coming from the sun as well. That's why they tell you to use sunscreen, because it can be damaging to your skin. All right, so visible light is only a fraction of the energy coming from the sun. Is the visible light that we can actually see. That's this small portion here. Those 750 to 400 to 750 nanometers in wavelength. Photons. Photon. You may have heard of that term, photon. Photons are packets of light energy. High energy here, low energy here. Depending on the type of light it is, how many photons of energy are packed into that type of light energy. Plants and other photosynthesizers, photons, capture photons of visible light. Right? You may have always wondered why most plants are green. They're not all green, but a lot of them are green. They say eat your green leafy vegetables, right? Green is a common color. Chlorophyll A, we'll see that here, chlorophyll B, and then carotenoids. These are the photosynthetic pigments. So if something is green, that means it's reflecting the green part of the visible light and absorbing the other parts of the light. So that's what you're showing here. So when you see something as green, that means it's reflecting the green light. That's what's reflecting into your eyes, and it looks green from the sun. So this, so the sun is giving this. From 500 to 550. So the sun is giving all of these, all of this energy in the sunlight. Only the green portion, so like this portion right here, is being reflected, so not being absorbed by the leaf. That's why the leaf looks green, because that green is being reflected into our eyes. The other portions are being absorbed into the leaf, right? So these pigments specialize in absorbing energy from different wavelengths of light, right? So it doesn't absorb this green portion, so that's what's reflected into our eyes. That's why we see that, but it does absorb this portion and uses those photons to create energy. I know it can be a little confusing, but
Because they should all be reflected.
Well, no, but it's different wavelengths of light. So even though you see it as sunlight, it's different wavelengths of light all at the same time. And so, have you ever seen like a prism, and how a prism shines one bright light, and then it reflects, and then you see like different colors come out the other end because it's dividing the light. Yeah. So chlorophyll A is the main photosynthetic pigment in plants. Right, so each type of pigment absorbs energy from some of the wavelengths and reflects other wavelengths. So it generally reflects the green but absorbs the other wavelengths. And then you have some other accessory pigments which are less abundant, chlorophylls, the chlorophyll B and the carotenoids. And they're going to be seen as a yellowish green or red, orange, and yellow. And so they'll reflect these colors and absorb the other colors. Only absorbed light, the one that it doesn't reflect, the light that it does absorb is used for photosynthesis. So the light that is absorbed, we use those photons, those packets of light energy, and and the plant cell can convert those to glucose. Gas exchange occurs at the leaf pores, called the stomata, right? So CO2, carbon dioxide, remember that's necessary for photosynthesis to occur. So gas has to come in, and then we also, when we do photosynthesis, gas has to come out. Oxygen and water have to come out. All right? And this occurs at the leaf pores, the stomata, the pores on the leaf. Chloroplasts, which we talked about those today in the lab, are the organelles. If you look inside the cell, the organelles, chloroplasts. Then we have the central vacuole. So we hopefully saw today, or tried to see today. These are the organelles responsible for photosynthesis, responsible for taking light energy and converting it into glucose. All right?
So what would be the cell wall? The outer?
So the outside of the cell, here.
So the circle would have been the cell wall.
You're right. That would be the cell wall. Then you have the chloroplast and the central vacuole. The nucleus is where the DNA is. Yes, it'll all be inside
So I could just point to
the vacuole, the chloroplast, the nucleus is all inside this plant cell. Cell walls on the outside. Inside the chloroplast, which we didn't get to see this because our microscopes aren't as powerful. So each chloroplast contains several stacks of membranes called thylakoids, and a stack of those is called a granum, right? That's inside. So if we were able to look inside the chloroplast, which we can kind of see a little bit, but this is the detail inside the chloroplast. So chloroplast is a membrane-bound structure. Remember, that's a eukaryote. All eukaryotes have membrane-bound organelles. So chloroplast is a membrane-bound structure. Inside that chloroplast, we have some DNA, we have some stroma, we have some ribosomes inside the chloroplast. And these structures inside are called the granum, which are made up of stacks of the thylakoids. All right? Pigment molecules in the thylakoid membranes capture sunlight. All right, we want to capture that sunlight, basically capturing that energy from the sun, capturing those photons. All right, so the structure inside the pigmented molecules embedded in the thylakoid membrane are going to capture sunlight. The energy from the sun is going to be captured there. And then we have this photosystem, is a large protein structure in the thylakoid membrane, a large protein structure, this photosystem. So we've gone from the chloroplast to the thylakoid. A stack of those is called a granum, and to the actual, looking at the protein structure, which is called a photosystem, right? Consists of antenna pigments and a reaction center that contains chlorophyll. Very important, chlorophyll. And you see you don't have to memorize this formula, but you see the formula for it here, right? So you see these antenna pigments. This is photosystem. Light energy is coming there. And we're going to see how we get from light energy to glucose. How do we get that? That's the process we want to see. How does light, water, carbon dioxide inside the plant cell lead to us being able to create glucose, which is sugar, which our bodies can use not our bodies, with plants' bodies, the plant body can use to then energize the plant cell and be able to use that to make ATP and be able to perform the functions inside of the plant cell and essentially stay alive. All right, so the reactants are light, water, and carbon dioxide, and the product is oxygen and sugar. In this case, 6-carbon sugar, glucose. Right? That's what we want to get to. All right, so we have light reactions. Light energy is captured, so we want to capture that light energy. Remember that kinetic energy from from the sun and convert that to a chemical energy. And then we also have carbon reactions. Energy is used to produce sugar. We have to make glucose. So what happens? Light reactions occur in the thylakoids and require water and light, right? Occur here. ATP, adenosine triphosphate, and NADPH are produced to carry stored energy. So when these light reactions happen, we produce ATP, which is the energy of the cell, produce stored energy. Oxygen gas is formed as a byproduct, releases oxygen. And this is what it looks like. You don't have to memorize this whole pathway, but it's an electron transport chain, similar to actually what happens in the human body, very similar, but it's an electron transport chain that allows for this to convert. You're taking the energy from the light and using that to eventually make ATP, and then that ATP is going to be used to make glucose. All right, so this is the electron transport chain. That's what it looks like here. You'll see light strikes the first photosystem. Chlorophyll absorbs the light, that energy, and transfers it to electrons. Remember, electrons are floating on the outsides of different atoms and molecules. So it's transferring it to electrons, which comes from the water molecules. Remember, H2O, hydrogen and oxygen. So it transfers that energy from the light to water molecules, and electrons move to an electron transport chain, right? So using water, transferring the energy from the chlorophyll helps transfer the energy to the light, from the light to the water, and then it goes down this electron transport chain, transporting energy and releasing energy. Electrons move down the transport chain. Hydrogen is pumped into the thylakoid. Hydrogen leaves through the ATP synthase. And like I said, you don't have to memorize this whole thing. Just know that we start with water, know that we start with light, know that we start with sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide, and that we end up with glucose and oxygen, right? But through this first part, the light reaction, that's where we give off the oxygen. And then they arrive at the second photosystem. The atoms arrive at the second photosystem, and that's where we have light hits the chlorophyll, transfers it to electrons, moves to a second electron transport chain, produces NADPH.
And the sugar is like food, so it like
Yeah.
helps it grow, basically.
Exactly. Well, yeah, the sugar is it's energy, so it's like stored energy. But it's like, yeah, exactly, like food for the cell. Oh, is it too much? Is it too much?
I think we're all just tired. Like it's not your thing. It's just like all day. I just felt very like.
And I do have to get to work as well. So.
Oh, okay, I get it. All right, no worries. All right, so that's the basic process. And so a realistic application here, or a way to stop the realistic application. Some people may sometimes have issues with things called weeds in their yard, and you have these things called weed killers, these chemicals that you can put onto your weeds, and you notice that the weeds die. And how do weeds die? In the presence of, they still have oxygen, they still have water, but they die. How do they die is what we block the reaction, the chemicals that you put onto your weeds, weed killer, essentially tries to block the light reactions by interfering with the flow of electrons. So that electron transport chain that allows it to be able to transfer the energy from the light to make ATP, we block that process, that electron transport chain, and therefore, even though they still have light and they still have water, we block that process through the chemicals in the weed killers, and then it can't create the weeds can't create the necessary glucose that they need to be able to live, and then hopefully they die. Problem is that weed killers sometimes affect the wrong parts of your lawn and can be not good for other parts, the things that you actually do want to live in your lawn. All right, so that's all. We're not going to go through too much of that. Like I said, you don't have to remember the whole process, but just understand that light, water, and carbon dioxide are necessary. You have the light reaction, you have a carbon reaction. The product of the light reaction, or the waste product of the light reaction, is oxygen, and then ATP, NAD, pH is used to transfer it to the carbon reaction. And then what we want to do in the carbon reaction is we want to produce glucose, right? So that is the goal, right? So we take in light, we take in carbon dioxide, we take in water, we produce oxygen, and we produced glucose, sugar, which can be then, it's a monosaccharide that can be bound together, and you can make starches and all that kind of stuff. All right, so I definitely want you to know all of that. You don't have to know this, right? Plants use glucose for energy and to build sucrose or larger polysaccharides. We looked at that today in the lab. You saw that the glucose, which is a monosaccharide, single 6-carbon sugar, can diffuse into and out of the dialysis tubing, which is similar. It's supposed to represent the cell membrane in our laboratory. So your body can make, not your body, the plant body can make these glucose and uses glucose as energy. So it can use it to create more energy, to convert it to more energy that the plant can use for different reactions in the plant, just like the food we eat. Or it can use it to build larger polysaccharides, cellulose, starch, things like that. Other polysaccharides, meaning you bind the monosaccharides together and build other polysaccharides. And plants have different pathways. Not all plants are the same, but they can use different pathways for their carbon. Each has its own advantages and disadvantages. You notice that some plants, if those of you who buy plants or like plants, some plants need a lot of water. Some plants need a lot of sunlight. Some plants can survive in a cactus, for instance, can survive in the desert, whereas other plants would die if they were in the desert. And so there's different types of plants which do things a little bit differently. All right, so C3 plants do well in cool, moist weather, whereas you have other plants that are C4 and decant plants, different types of plants which are adapted to hot and or dry weather. And so they do most of their sugar making at nighttime versus in the daytime when it's hot outside. Oh, go ahead.
So I was gonna ask, because there's also plants in fish tank or tank water, and
Right.
they don't, some of them don't even come into contact with the sun, which would give them that kinetic energy. So how does
Well, they have light.
the lead light?
It could be some light from, usually plants need some type of light. Yeah, usually they need some type of light. So they usually, you can do, these have artificial lights that are right over here.
Oh, so
Yeah, that can work too. It doesn't have to be sunlight.
Light is energy.
Yeah, light is energy. It doesn't have to be sunlight. Yeah. Yeah, some plants definitely do much better with sunlight, but yeah, you can use other lights, and they can harvest that energy. Obviously, it's not as powerful as the sun, so it's not as much energy coming in that light as it would be in sunlight. All right, so the C3 plants, one type of plant can do it all at once. All right, so All reactions take place in the mesophyll cells. So, in hot and dry weather, the stomata is closed to conserve water. Photorespiration occurs due to the oxygen buildup inside the leaf, decreasing photosynthesis, right? So in these, it all happens at once versus C4 plants that can survive in a little bit different environments. The carbon reactions can occur in a bundle, sheath cells away from the air. Right, so they just can do it in different times in different places. So if we go back to here, which one is it? So the most regular plants that do well in cool, moist weather, everything is happening at one time versus these plants here, they can split it up basically based on the fact that it's in a hot environment or not as much water environment. And that's how they're able to stay alive, by splitting it up and doing it a little bit separately. All right, and so that's how some plants are able to do it versus other plants. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. All right, so that's photosynthesis. Like I said, you don't need to know the whole chemical equation of chlorophyll, or you don't have to redo the whole reaction of photosynthesis. It's good to go through it and just to understand it. I mean, just to look at it and read it and try to understand it. But you need to know the basic concept that we take sunlight, carbon dioxide, water. The plant takes that into the chloroplast, and chlorophyll captures that light energy. We use a water molecule to transfer the energy to the electrons in the water molecule. We have a reaction. The light reaction was what it's called. The product of that is oxygen. Energy is transferred to the ATP, NADPH. That's going to transfer it to the carbon side of the reaction. We're going to use carbon dioxide. We're going to use, we're going to create carbon dioxide. No. Use carbon dioxide to create, what's it called? A sugar. Create a sugar, glucose, as a result of that side of the reaction. Okay? So you need to understand that basic concept. Like I say, I'm not going to ask you for the whole chemical equation or anything like that.